Hi guys, Victoria Bardovich here. This is the Evolutionary Edge of Eros podcast. Today I want to talk a little bit about innovation and why I think innovation is super important inside of the erotic space, the industry of sacred sexuality, and the world of Tantra. For me, there has been something that I've really felt in where I sit inside of the world of sacred sexuality as an industry. And this has been really something that has been on my heart ever since I came into the space. As I mentioned on the previous podcast, I entered into the world of sacred sexuality at a time where there were these very strong pioneers that brought through modalities and experiences that were really for the fringe dwellers of the world. And in my lifetime, we've really seen Instagram change that and really bring in a lot more awakening for people in the world of sexuality, and it's become a little bit more mainstream, which has called for people to become a lot more trauma informed and a lot more welcoming of people from all different walks of life versus just holding an experience and just trusting whoever finds that is meant to find it. So it's a very different way of approaching these things, and obviously marketing and social media has allowed us to widen the spread of the kind of people that have come into this kind of world. And my exploration has always been like, what is the importance of innovation inside of the sacred sexuality space? For me, that is the whole purpose of it. What I'm really curious about and what my experiments and workshops and facilitation experiences encompass is really the space of what is actually happening in the world of sexuality. If people are exploring their eros, what is really going on? And not from a place of wanting to know what's going on in people's bedrooms. I think that generally does stay fairly the same. But how people are in relationship to their own sexuality. I had a short stint with the dating world at the end of last year. Not for myself personally, but I have been running this event called the Fuck Up Nights, which is where entrepreneurs come and share their stories of business failure and how they fucked up in their careers and in their business practices and the lessons that they learned from them. And because we were drawing in quite a lot of entrepreneurial men, I had a lot of women saying to me like, Vic, can you come and set me up with somebody? Like, I want to know, like, is this somebody that I could be set up with? Because there was a lot more eligible bachelors inside of this event that we were running. So I started setting people up, and then I put something on my Facebook that just said like, there is, I'm going to play Cupid as a little bit of a Christmas gift for people. This is not a business model. This is just me playing. If you want to be set up, like, reach out and I will see if I can connect you with somebody. And I had, within the space of 3 weeks, I had like 500 people in a database, and I had to start streamlining things, and ended up calling in people from all different places to help me, taking phone calls with the participants. I had a woman that was coming in that was putting all the admin together and creating the database so that it made sense, so that we could search people with easier. Then I had people pairing people, so making lots of matches. It was quite a fun time. And I learned a lot about the world of dating and what was actually happening for people inside of their relationship to their sexuality, inside of their relationship to finding a mate, and what it was that they were calling in. And it really just highlighted for me even more what I have been experiencing inside of the space of sexuality, is that if people explore their relationship to their sexuality and have an awareness of their eros, then the place that they're meeting people from is actually a lot more authentic. And it creates a space for them to recognize what it is that they truly want, and really move from a place of realizing their needs, realizing their desires, and following the truth of their eros versus following the mental idea that they need to find somebody to bolster their status. Because that was a lot of the uncovering through the Cupid game, is that people wanted, like, women really wanted men that were very successful in business, that could provide for them, that had a certain amount of power and respect inside of their industry, and men wanted women that were very young, that were very beautiful, that didn't have any children, and I'm really like typecasting now, but this is the complaints that I was receiving. There were a lot of beautiful dates that people went on that were not living inside of that, but the people that were coming up against like, no, I don't want this isn't what I'm looking for, those were a lot of what I was experiencing from the different genders. And so the process that I went on was this uncovering, like, this was not my experience when I was dating. And my experience when I was dating was this relationship to recognizing that if I followed my eros and let the pulse of life move through me, even if I didn't want to make love with said person that would come onto my path, I would have the experience of being met in deep truth and authenticity. And that was actually really life-giving for me. And it created an experience where connection felt like it was nourishing me. So whether it was a sexual partner, whether it was somebody that I was going to marry or whatever, it was the experience of going, this is authentic connection and I am therefore nourished. And actually, the world of dating, although it seems like multiple auditions for the one, is actually about people seeking nourishment from connection and authenticity. So this process really led me to recognizing, how do you create that for yourself, and how do people unravel all their conditioning with their own sexuality and their eros and their pull towards even wanting a partner and even wanting to get married or wanting someone with children, without children, all these different ideas, was the process of recognizing what their personal desires were, or realizing what was their family's desires and what society expected from them versus what they really wanted for themselves. And once they'd unraveled that, they would actually be able to come into a place of recognizing it was really just about nourishment, recognizing it was really about being authentic with themselves and being authentic with others. And this is the breakthrough point that I've tracked. I actually have a video on YouTube which is called Personal, Transpersonal and Impersonal Sexuality, where I just explain that there's like 3 different ways of exploring connection, especially sexual connection. One of them is through the personal, where we really deeply are making love with every single part of the being that we're being with, and we're inviting them into relational space. You know, it's like, it's not just sexuality, it's like, it's relational, and I want to know you, and I care that you have a dog, and I care that you you know, that what you do for work, and I care for all these different parts of you as a human being, and wanting to deepen inside of a space of knowing them in their entirety. And then there's the transpersonal, which is aspects of my consciousness are journeying with aspects of your consciousness, and they're working through the language of sexuality. So it's like the bodies are meeting to have some sort of exchange, and the exchange is happening through the lens of maybe just one aspect of my consciousness with one aspect of your consciousness, but sometimes it's multiple parts, and sometimes it's archetypal, or it is like some part of the view that needs to be met, and there's only a certain vibrational frequency that can be met in, and it involves being with somebody that you have less of a personal relationship with sometimes, to explore like the purity of that transpersonal connection. The other one is the impersonal, and impersonal is less about any kind of archetypal understanding, any aspects of consciousness, or even the personal factors of who you are as human beings, and it is more just the bodies meeting to have an experience. And sometimes when eros brings people together, it is just for the sakes of meeting sexual needs. Like, human beings are a bunch of hormones really walking around seeking oxytocin, seeking dopamine, different aspects of the self, and this is often where I see impersonal sexuality comes from. And a lot of growth can actually happen through impersonal sex. I think it's very shamed and deemed as lower than or less than personal or transpersonal sexuality experiences. But I think that people experience a lot of growth and work out who they really are through those experiences a lot of the time. And I think the shadow aspect of that is a lot of the time in impersonal sexuality, there's a lack of care, and there's a lack of tenderness. So some parts can often get left behind, which I think is why there is this like negativity that is attached to impersonal sexuality sometimes. But to bring it back to where I started, the reason when I bring these ideas in and these concepts is because this video where I share these concepts, it actually got some of the most views than the rest of my YouTube put together. And I really believe that this is because people are deeply trying to understand their sexuality, and they're trying to unravel what it is that pulls them towards another human being. If they know they don't want to marry this person or care about them, then why do they want to have sex with them? Why is it that they're drawn to these people? What is it inside of them that they're trying to get from connecting with somebody else? And for me, this is the most curious part of human sexuality, what it is that drives our eros. And a lot of the time, we will never know. It is so hard to really understand what it is that drives us towards even our attraction to other people. Like, we might not even find that person physically attractive, but we feel like alive and aroused when we are with this person. And what is that? Why is that? And how comes it sometimes in our life that we could be friends with somebody for 10 years and not see them in a certain way, and then one day there's an arousal there's something that wakes up inside of us where we want to be close to them in a sexual way. And this is what really fascinates me, and this is why I believe that innovation is really what we're studying when we are in the exploration of sexuality. So a lot of tantric festivals or sexuality festivals that I have attended or facilitated at have been really regurgitating a lot of the same things: energy orgasms, consent and boundaries, how to heal your sexual trauma, how to have a threesome, how to be more masculine, how to be more feminine, the same sort of principles over and over again, which are super important at the first stage of when you're starting to awaken and understand your sexual conditioning, your sexual experience of life. And the thing that I really yearn for, and probably because I've just been in this space for a very long time, is that space of innovation, is that space of like, what is happening in the human psyche right now? Something that I often share with students and people that have worked with me is that, I am 33 years old and I'm the last generation to grow up without internet pornography at my fingertips. When I was a kid and all the way through till, 14, 15, there was no internet pornography. That was not a big part of our society at the time. The same goes for Tinder and Bumble and all these dating apps that we're now a big part of our lives. When I was a teenager, we had Nokias, we had Snake on our phone. Like, that was the height of these things and of technology at the time. And that was not the realm of dating. Dating happened by somebody goes to the pub and asks for your phone number in the pub. This was the technology of dating at the time. So dating is changing rapidly and technology is changing rapidly, and our relationship to the way that we see ourselves as sexual beings and even our status and what we deem to be an eligible bachelor or eligible woman, to date, is changing rapidly. And as these things change, so does our sexuality change and what we're attracted to. Even plastic surgery, like when I was a kid, like boob jobs were not a thing. This has all come in the last few decades, and I am fascinated by what that is doing to us as sexual beings on a deeply erotic level. And the more that we can excavate our relationship to what we desire, why we desire certain people, and letting ourselves come deeper into the current of our own eros, knowing our eros, interacting with our eros, feeling our eros, the more that truth can come through and connect us with the right person. Because one of the things that I often see is people getting together for this ideas around status, around thinking they're going to make a good children together, or they're going to make a good career together, or something that is ultimately in the personality. And then they just come to recognize, as their soul starts to break through in their older years and time goes on, is that does not fulfill them. And I'm really curious of what it is that will fulfill human beings on a long-term level. What would happen if we were able to follow that soul nudge, the whispers of our soul when they speak to us? What happens if we're quiet enough to hear them, to let them move? And what happens if we know our instinct and if we explore our sexuality so it doesn't become this taboo thing that can finally come out with the right person but could actually be known? And what if our community could see our sexuality and know our sexuality in a way where we weren't able to hide from ourselves and our sexual shadows weren't running the show? And this has been a lot of my experience when I've worked with high-level entrepreneurs, for example. They don't trust their eros. They often don't trust their heart and what their heart's calling for, because what they see is that their sexual desire is drawn towards women that steer them off their path. They're exciting, there's a lot of adrenaline, but what happens is that when they're running that adrenaline, is that they're running their testosterone, and their purpose goes out of whack. They lose the relationship to what it is they came here to do. And they don't want to do that because they've got so much, life force in the game of creating what they came here to create. So what the processes that they go through with me when they're unraveling this is to recognize that they need to stop being run by that animalistic adrenaline desire, and that they need to unpack and come back into relationship with their true eros. And when their eros is moving with them, it is working towards the same goal and desire that they cognitively know that they want. So this is when we align our instinct and our animal body with our heart's truest desires and our soul's truest desires. And this is innovation. This is where it lives. And every time something comes in, like Tinder or plastic surgery or something else that is external that can change the way that we view our sexuality, the more we have to come in and excavate and find that part of ourselves. Because even for myself, during my 20s, I didn't have a big relationship to insecurity. I didn't feel like I had a lot of insecurities around my body, around my experience of my sexuality, around comparing myself to other women. That wasn't a part of my reality. I'm now 33, and I'm in this stage of like wanting to have children, wanting to start a family, and actually transition from the maiden into the mother. And I'm starting to recognize, and also being a part of that dating pool, hearing what other people had to say about what they believe in other people's relationships and how they value women, was a real wake-up call for me to go, oh, this is how society sees the world. And if I choose this pathway to having children, I will actually lose value in the dating pool. And I mean, ultimately that doesn't really matter, because I'm married now, and I intend to stay married my entire life. But there is a knowing of the what if that was to go wrong, and just recognizing that this is part of the path. As much as I felt complete with insecurities, body confidence after teen years, and in my 20s I felt fine, now I'm at a different stage of the spiral, a different stage of the process of becoming a woman. Something else is happening, and now I'm in a different stage of where that innovation lives, actually. So it's like I'm more impacted by the external environment as I'm coming through this very vulnerable coming of age from maiden to mother. So it's just worth recognizing that even when we do feel complete with something, different stages of our life brings up different parts for us. And I know this is very similar for a lot of my female friends that have gone from mother to crone, or mother to Margot to crone, like that stage where they go through the menopause. It's like there's a loss of their sexuality. There's a loss of feeling valuable in society that they have to descend through to actually own their wisdom. So there's different, so again, external impacts can come in and have a different impact on them and their eros at that time. And excavating their eros from the ashes almost. It's almost like everything just burns down as their cycle leaves them. And what has to upwell from there is this new relationship to their eros that they discover almost on the other side of that. And that burning down process can be a year, 2 years, a long time for them to really shed the layers of who they were as a woman to become who they are as a crone. And it's a powerful time. So this is my curiosity, these places, these initiations, these rites of passage that we go through as human beings, how the external world actually impacts us, and then how that actually starts to show up inside of the realm of the sacred sexuality space. So something that I'm very passionate about inside of Tantra festivals and sacred sexuality spaces is, yes, we need boundaries and consent. Yes, we need to help people through their sexual trauma. And there's something else. Once we have these people vibrating, they've moved through their own traumas, that we start to work towards what do we want to see in the world around sexuality. If we're not healing, if we're not trying to fix something, if we're not trying to educate people on things they were never educated in school, what's possible? And that's the conversation that I would love to bring into this podcast called The Evolutionary Edge of Eros. What is your evolutionary edge of Eros? Because it never stops. Like in any given moment, if we are tracking and working with our erotic pulse, with that pulse of life that's moving through us, it can always be informing us like more about our lives, more about our inner world. And then that in turn can show us where our life force is in our external environment. So where it's showing up in our career, where it's showing up in our finances, where it's showing up in our relationships. So I invite you into that inquiry. Where is your evolutionary edge of Eros right now? And when you go into that inquiry, if it is beyond that frame of healing, educating, understanding, what you'll probably track is in relationship to the rite of passage or the initiation that you're going through inside of your life right now. And what would happen if these Tantra spaces, festivals, workshops, trainings started to move from healing into the evolutionary edge and invited you into tracking this as a way of life, as a way of getting closer to yourself, and a way of exploring your relationship to yourself and your partner and the other people in your life, and also life itself. And if we did that, what would we learn about the humans? What would we learn about that moment of what's happening right now? Where are we? As an example, like something that you might start to track in your evolutionary edge is that you maybe have some resistance to surrendering when you're in the bedroom. Maybe you have some embarrassment or shame or guilt that has just upwelled on a certain part of your sexuality. Maybe you're starting to feel drawn and attracted to older people or younger people or something else, but every single one of those attractions, desires, erotic pulses is informing you something about yourself. And if you started to have a collective where you could actually come together with other people and not be ashamed of your erotic charge in your body, trust your instinct, move towards your instinct when it upwells, feel your rage when you're against something, feel your sadness when you're grieving something in the collective, know the difference between what's happening in the collective and what's happening with you. As you start to understand this, like, more of you will come online, and the more you deeply know yourself, the more your soul will set on fire and guide you towards where you need to go, the more alignment you will experience in your life, and the more life force that will be able to drive you to the highest potential that you have in this lifetime. So for me, this is a process of uncovering and accessing more of your divinity. So I'm going to leave you with that question mark today. Like, where is your evolutionary edge of Eros? What is happening for you in the bedroom right now, whether that's alone or with your partner? And how can you explore that? How can you invite that conversation to come more into your awareness and find ways to uncover and unlock more of your highest potential and your divinity? Thank you.